To prove that moon landing was a lie, a millionaire decides to carry out this mission by himself. Before he reaches the moon and removes the previous flag, NASA has to send another astronaut there. However, only a brave kid can successfully do it. This is Mike Goldwing, a 12-year-old boy who loves playing capture the flag in the sea. His team consists of his best friends Marty and Amy. They always come up with new game strategies and even use their pet lizard Igor and Marty's inventions. But despite all these efforts, Mike's team always loses in the end. They get so close to success, but the opponent team snatches it out of their hands. After the match, Mike gets picked up by his mom Samantha, as they are going to celebrate his dad's birthday. He's a NASA's astronaut named Scott Goldwing, who has been training for years but hasn't got a chance to participate in a space mission yet. He gets really frustrated and asks Mike if he won the match, but unfortunately, the whole family suffers from bad luck. Samantha stops at the old age home to pick up Scott's father Frank, but Scott prefers staying in the car. He knows that his stubborn dad will say no to their invitation like always. Scott is right. Frank doesn't even bother to greet his family. However, Samantha keeps trying to convince him at every occasion. It was her mother-in-law's last wish to make Frank and Scott live together happily. Later that day, Mike goes to have dinner with his family and notices the breaking news on TV. One of the richest men in the world, Richard Carson, has gathered everyone to make a big announcement. His grandfather revolutionized petroleum. His father was the driving force behind nuclear energy, and today Richard owns the biggest energy production company in the world. After making a grand entrance, Richard starts his announcement by mentioning how people still doubt that someone landed on the moon. About 50% of the population believes that it was just a lie, and Richard is one of them. His father wanted to travel to the moon and spent a huge fortune, but NASA didn't let him do it. They made several excuses, but Richard believes that they stopped his father to protect their lie. He even shows a video of the moon landing being filmed in the studio. Richard's father died without fulfilling his dream, but now he will finish the incomplete task by being the first man on moon. He has even built a rocket by himself and will be going to space really soon. Seeing this, Mike wishes NASA goes to the moon again to prove Richard a liar, but Scott says it's not that easy. They don't have the right rocket anymore, and the space race ended long ago. NASA doesn't take Richard seriously, but the next morning the president calls an emergency meeting. Just in a day, the government has received thousands of emails calling the moon landing a lie. Social media is also going nuts over this news. President asks everyone to calm down because they have plenty of proof of their landing, but one of the officers brings some bad news. A secret agent reported about Richard's plans. After reaching the moon, he will destroy the remains of all lunar missions, including the USA flag. If the government tries to stop Richard, the suspicion will increase. They must plan everything very cleverly. Meanwhile, Mike and his friends are still planning how to win the next flag game. Amy asks Mike about his grandpa, but he doesn't know much either. All his mother told was Grandpa being chosen to be a part of the last space mission, but just a few days before the launch, he was removed from the crew. He never told the actual reason to anyone and cut ties with his family and friends. Then one day he just left home and refused to meet anyone, especially his son. Mike doesn't care about it, but Amy asks him to be more sensible. Family is the most important thing in the whole world. Mike can't understand the joy of having a grandpa without meeting him. Mike doesn't respond to Amy and continues to help Marty in his project. Suddenly, they hear Marty's dad screaming at the door. He has brought some big news for Scott. They are going to the moon. The president has decided to repair the old rocket in the museum and reach the moon before Richard does it. Moreover, Scott is going to be the commander of this mission. As the rocket is more than 40 years old, NASA is going to invite the senior astronauts to train the crew. As Scott expected, all the senior astronauts agreed, except his dad. Mike hears everything and believes that it's a good chance to recover the relationship between his dad and Grandpa. He's going to meet Frank secretly and convince him to appear at the training. As the night sets in, Mike and his friends head towards the old age center to meet Frank. Marty keeps an eye on the surroundings by attaching a phone on his lizard while Amy and Mike sneak into the center. They almost get caught, but Amy cleverly distracts the staff and Mike succeeds in reaching Frank's room. He doesn't say a word and leaves after giving an envelope. Frank opens the envelope and finds an old picture of him and Scott. He may have lost his chance, but he can help his son achieve the dream of reaching the moon. Meanwhile, Richard has started his preparations as well. His loyal assistants Gigs and Gags tell him about NASA's plan, but Richard is not worried at all. He has discovered the ultimate replacement of fuel, the helium-3. It's extremely rare on Earth, but there's infinite supply on the moon. Richard is going to collect helium-3 from the moon and sell it on Earth at a high price. The story about his father's wish was just a drama to earn the public's sympathy. The next morning, Mike and his friends reached the training center to meet astronauts. They didn't have much hope, but surprisingly, Frank actually showed up. However, he's still acting tough, and there's a visible distance between the father and son. But Frank doesn't hold back when it comes to training. He wants to make sure that Scott is ready for the big mission. They don't have any room for failure. The training starts with learning how to control the lunar module. Frank is being very strict with Scott, so there's no possibility of a mistake. Suddenly, Mike and his friends reach there and beg for a ride. Frank immediately says no, but Scott reminds him of the past. He also let his son on the module, and it was the best memory ever. Frank doesn't say anything in response, so the kids get on the module. They fly comfortably in the sky and gets a beautiful view of their city. Unfortunately, the bad luck kicks in and the fuel cap falls off. The module starts to lose fuel and it can crash any time. It will be safer to try landing it down, but Frank doesn't trust Scott's ability and asks him to eject. The kids land down safely, but Scott's leg gets fractured. The curse is going down in the family, and no Goldwing will ever set his foot on Moon. On the other hand, Richard has run tests on helium-3 use, and even sacrifices his assistant to check how powerful the energy is. He's getting impatient and wants to use helium-3 in his rocket. NASA also hasn't given up yet, but they have replaced Scott. He gets really depressed and blames his dad because Frank was in charge of preparing the module. This was his first and last chance, but it's gone forever. Mike also blames himself because he made things even worse. Now his dad will also cut off from his family and leave them forever. Amy tells Mike to stop being so negative, otherwise she is going to kick him to the moon. Instead of making him angry, this statement gives Mike a great idea. He's going to the moon. He will hide inside the rocket and break the family curse by reaching the moon. After that, everything will turn normal. Regardless of how risky this mission is, his loyal friends agree to help him. As the NASA training is broadcasted live on television, Mike trains himself in the same way. 2 weeks pass away like seconds, and now the astronauts are preparing for their launch. Marty has analyzed the launch platform and reveals that it is surrounded by the sea and protected by a metal fence. The only way to get inside is surfing on the sea. Mike and friends have done it many times during the flag game, so it will not be very difficult. However, Amy excuses herself because she is afraid of her parents finding out what she did. They are really strict about rules and may send Amy to the military school. Mike understands her problem and decides to continue without Amy. He gets in the sea with Marty, but little do they know that the sea was full of alligators. The boys almost get killed, but Amy reaches there to help them. She couldn't leave her friends behind. After getting out of the sea, they start climbing up the fence, but Marty gets stuck on it. The security guards are after them, so Marty tells his friends to move on without him. Amy also needs to return home, but Mike asks her to stay till he gets inside the rocket. They hide in a storage container and reach the entrance of the rocket. Mike immediately calls Marty on the walkie-talkie, but his dad also hears the conversation. Frank is informed about the issue and he enters the rocket to get the kids out. While they are arguing, Richard sends a man to secretly launch the rocket without the crew. The doors shut by themselves and the countdown begins. Frank immediately connects with the control room and asks for their help. Unfortunately, they can't help because someone sabotages the system. The security catches the culprit, but it's already too late. The president orders to stop Richard, but his rocket has already taken off. Hearing this, Scott gets really angry at Mike, but the boy clearly says that he is doing this all to break the family curse. The control system checks all the possibilities and concludes that there's only two options. Either they launch for the moon, or do ejection that will destroy the rocket. Scott asks his dad to eject anyway, but Mike destroys the button. He will break the curse at any cost. Now there's only one option. It's time to fly to the moon. Frank asks the kids to wear their suits and prepare for the biggest and most dangerous mission of their lives. They need to capture the flag before Richard and return home safely. Amy is worried that her family will be angry, but on the bright side, she can be the world's first woman on the moon. The news reaches the president, and she can't believe that their fate is in the hands of a grandpa and 2 kids. However, there's no other option than praying for the success of this mission. After a while, Mike and his crew get out of the Earth's atmosphere and witness the breathtaking view. Samantha reaches the control room and asks his husband about their son. She gets really worried and asks Frank to protect the kids and bring them back home. As their rocket gets near Richard's, he starts to panic and sends spider robots to destroy the rocket. The robots attach themselves to the rocket and start melting the cover. Scott asks the astronauts to stay inside the capsule, but Frank can't let his mission get ruined like this. When he thought that there would be no second chance, life gave him one. He can't mess it up this time. Frank grabs a random tool and gets outside to stop the robots. Unfortunately, he fails, and the robots attack him from all sides. Mike can't just leave his grandpa in danger, so he goes against the orders and leaves the rocket. Mike succeeds in destroying the robots and bringing back his grandpa, but the grandpa doesn't seem happy. He scolds the boy and tells him never to disobey the orders. He's not his grandpa right now. He's the commander here. Saying this, Frank starts treating his injuries, but he needs some help. As Mike can't treat him like a grandpa, he asks Frank to order him to help. Frank feels sorry for the poor boy, but he can't let his emotions get in the way of their mission. However, he still calls Mike a brave boy and thanks him for saving their lives. After a few hours of flight, Frank puts the kids to sleep and updates Samantha. He promises to bring the kids back safe and sound, and also thanks Samantha for never giving up on him. But Samantha gives all the credit to Mike. He's the one who made everything possible. She also advises Frank to enjoy this moment because destiny owed him this journey. Mike is still awake and hears everything. He just wanted to bring the family together and wondered why Grandpa left home. Frank doesn't answer and asks Mike to go back to sleep. The next morning, they reach the moon and start detaching the lunar module. Now it's time for the most difficult task: landing the lunar module safely. Frank's hand injury hasn't recovered yet, so he faces difficulty in controlling the module. Scott repeatedly tells him that the module is getting out of trajectory, but Frank can't do anything about it. Mike wants to help, but his grandpa doesn't trust anyone. Eventually, the module hits a cliff and loses control, so Frank agrees to take Mike's help. Suddenly, the emergency alarm starts ringing. The onboard computer is damaged, so they have to turn off the assistant guidance. Without the guidance, there's only a 10% chance of landing safely. As there's no other option, Frank asks Amy to press the button named AGS. Poor Amy starts to panic and can't find the right button. They have only 10 seconds left before crashing on the ground. Luckily, Amy presses the button in time, and Frank lands the module safely. The control room starts celebrating and turns on the live broadcast. Now the whole world witnessed the crew landing on the moon. Once the door opens, Mike lets his grandpa step on the moon. Frank can't believe this is happening. His dream that was shattered years ago has finally become a reality. They still have to complete their mission of getting the flag, so the crew immediately sets up their cart. They head towards the flag location, but unfortunately it is already replaced by Richard's company flag. He's also destroying all the evidence of previous moon landing. He made the whole world think that he was right. Before Frank can figure out anything, his cart gets hit by Richard and the antenna gets damaged. Now they can't communicate with the control room anymore. Mike takes control of the cart and starts chasing Richard. He sends the lizard, which scares Richard and brings back the flag. Richard gets really angry and kidnaps Grandpa. Mike and Amy returns to the module, but Mike feels lost. He lost communication, can't fly the module, and his grandpa is kidnapped by an idiot. After a while, Richard sends a robot to make a deal with Mike. If he wants to get back his grandpa, he must return the flag. Mike agrees and starts following the robot. On their way, they develop a communication through the walkie-talkie Marty created. Mike still goes to Richard's territory and witnesses the factory he set up to produce helium-3 on a large scale. After getting the flag, Richard unties Frank but orders his assistant to kill all of them. Mike and Amy start humiliating him by calling him an idiot who couldn't do anything without the generational wealth. Richard gets triggered and confesses all the evil deeds he committed. Little does he know, Amy is broadcasting everything live through the communication device Marty made. Now the whole world knows the truth. Richard starts attacking in anger, so Frank and the kids jump inside the disposal canal. To save the kids, Frank pushes them away and gets stuck by himself. Mike is not ready to leave without his grandpa, but Frank reveals that his helmet is cracked. He is losing oxygen, and before dying, he wants to tell Mike why he left home. Just a few days before his launch, Scott returned home with chickenpox, and Frank got it from him. That's why he was removed from the crew and started to blame Scott, even though it wasn't his fault. Later on, Frank regretted being such a terrible father and left home so Scott could have a peaceful life. Scott hears everything as well and feels sorry for not talking to his dad earlier. However, Mike is not giving up on his grandpa. He breaks the container and brings out Frank. He asks Grandpa to return to the module to change his helmet while they distract Richard. Frank can't accept it, but he needs to trust someone for the first time in his life. He goes back to the module while the kids distract Richard to a different path. He asks Marty to turn on the rocket function on the lizard, which will make them run faster. Mike heads towards the Helium-3 base so Richard may destroy it unintentionally, and his dream of ruling the world will end here. The plan works, and the whole Helium-3 base blasts into pieces. Frank keeps waiting for the kids, but there's no response. Suddenly, he sees Mike and Amy heading towards him. They put back the flag in the name of all mankind and return to Earth. The first thing Frank does after returning is hugging his son and reuniting his beautiful family, because there's nothing more important than family.